Hi, everybody. Welcome to Stop Being Sold, a community of informed consumers who are sick and tired of being sold financial products that they don't understand or need. So if you're tired of being a transaction, go ahead and hit that notification bell and the subscribe button so you never miss another video from us. And if you find this video content valuable, we'd appreciate the thumbs up button. Just a little push that thing right there. Exactly. We appreciate that. So how are you today, Brian?
I'm doing great, Michelle. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Today's video, we're going to be talking about how to create a financial plan for yourself for 2022 that actually works. One that makes you feel good about what you're doing. And like I said, works. And I think that's a big problem for a lot of people. I know I've struggled in the past, in my past, create this fantastic plan, and instead of working the plan, or I'll work part of the plan fizzles out and a new year comes and I'm still where I was, or I was still where I was, right? This is in the past. So.
Yeah, Michelle, in my 23 years in the business, we've created financial plans for thousands of clients. My biggest frustration as an advisor is we spend a lot of time to build the plan, with the husband and wife or whoever the consumer is. And in the beginning, we gather all this information, we go put a plan together, come back and deliver the plan. And then when it's time for the review of the plan a year later, 6 months later, whatever it may be, my biggest frustration is that the plan is still sitting in a folder that was never opened since the last time I left.
Right.
And you always feel as an advisor, my personal feelings was, okay, so what did I do wrong that they didn't even bother opening up the plan or follow through with the plan? And we even went to the point of reviewing on a quarterly basis, just to get the little baby steps. And the majority still didn't follow through with the plan. And there's a lot of, I don't charge for a financial plan, but there are financial advisors that do charge a lot of money for financial plans, and consumers pay it and don't see no value in it. So I guess that's my biggest frustration that I've had in my 23 years in the business. So.
Well, and they're frustrated. I mean, that's the thing. You show up another year and nothing's happened. I can say from my experience that working the plan is the thing that changed the game.
Yeah.
So while we'll go through today with some tips and some strategies that you can implement, the key really is to work the dang plan.
Yes, that's it. Just make the small steps to work the plan. It's that simple.
And we're lucky enough now, we live in a world where most of our financial dealings are automatic.
Yes.
So there should really be no excuse.
Nope.
To work the plan.
Nope.
All right. So with that said, let's dive in. So my first point, Brian, I know you have a bunch. You've been in this, as you said, 23 years, but I've lived it. Currently on track and doing great, but for years and years I struggled, and I'm not afraid or embarrassed to say it because now I can help other people. But the one thing that when I did not work a plan that I had created, a financial plan for myself, whether that was to pay off these 2 credit cards or save for a down payment or buy a car, whatever it was, I left the feeling out of it.
Sure.
And there was no feeling in it. It was just like 1 + 1 = 2.
Right.
And as you know, every financial decision is emotional.
Yeah. You've got to feel yourself in the imagery of where you see yourself in the future. And it's hard to stay in that mindset, Michelle, when you're dealing with stuff every day, the day-to-day living,
when that emergency comes up and you have to take the dog to the vet and it costs you $500.
Everything comes up. Everything comes up.
Always. It always does. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think that's a really key point. Feel yourself in that, in the place you want to be. And it doesn't necessarily have to be at the end of all of it. It can be, I just want to feel what it's like to have half of this saved.
Yeah. even a
or
small portion of it. So.
right, absolutely. And I think another thing was for me, what set me up for failure, besides lack of feeling and feeling that space that place I wanted to be, was also not being realistic.
That's true.
And I could work a plan for a good 6 months, and I could, spend 30% of my income paying down debt and another 20% saving, and it worked. But at the end of the 6 months, I was exhausted.
Right.
And then guess what I did? I took a trip to a Mexican beach for 2 weeks. I'm telling you, if you're watching this now, I have made every mistake possible. Was it worth it? Yeah, but I was worn out. And for me to get back on track again after that it took 4 or 5 months.
And you can compare this, Michelle, being realistic, to every January, everyone makes their New Year's resolutions of, hey, I want to lose 50 pounds, right? And all of a sudden by February 1st, you're like, oh, I'm only down 5. Okay, I give up on that. And they stop because it was too much for them. Too rigid,
yeah, exactly.
It wasn't realistic.
I think we've said it already. Life happens, so plan for it. So what are some things you've seen, or another strategy tip you could provide? So we have feel it, right? Feel where you want to be realistic. Don't set yourself up for failure.
How about think of it in terms of percentages instead of dollar statements?
This is a big one.
Yeah. And if you try to do it all, it's going to backfire on you, and you're going to stop because you're seeing no progress. So think of it this way, like let's say you want to maximize your 401k this year. Okay. Well, that can be done in simple little percentages. And let's say you make $50,000 a year, and the first 3% that you deposit, your company's going to match that for you. So if you make that as your goal for the year, you set it up in January 1 with your HR department. Hey, let's do 3% on my pay because I know the company's going to match that, and I'm okay with it. Then every week, bam, 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 bam. Every time you get that paycheck, there's that 3%. And it's working consistently. And at the end of the year, then you'll see the true dollar signs at the end of the year. So don't come out and say, okay, so what is that? Put back $1,500, but you want at 3%, and the company's going to match it. That's $3,000 by the end of the year, not including your earnings. But if you go and realistic, say, hey, I want to save $20,000 in my 401k this year, it's not going to work that way.
Right.
So you're not going to stick to putting 15% of your paycheck in every week. It's just not going to happen. So exactly.
And the thing for me, my personal journey out of debt and into savings and investing was that percentage instead of the dollar, because for me, I was self-employed. And so sometimes it would be, I wasn't on a roller coaster, but some months it would be like, ooh, look at that. I got an extra $2, $3, $4 in there, or maybe I'm $1,000 under, or whatever it is, but sticking to that percentage. And that's how you really, when I made that extra money, I wasn't like, I'm going to go spend it. I was like, no, it's 30% of whatever it is.
Right.
Or 10%. I mean, I went a little nuts there, as I told you.
Stick to the percentage, and don't make the percentage too big either.
Yeah.
Do something where it doesn't affect your day to day, but at least you're doing something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think another tip I can share real quick, we'll move on, is really knowing who you are. We talked about this with unrealistic expectations, and daily life happens. It's like setting milestones that some people don't need big milestones. For me, I needed monthly milestones. Then I looked at them in terms of quarter, and then I looked at the terms of the bigger picture, the whole year. So for example, I don't know, I was in my 30s, early 30s, and I wanted to pay off $10,000 in debt in 1 year. $10,000 was a long way off. So what I did is I broke that $10,000 into quarters. How much did I have to pay in each quarter? And then how much did I have to meet each month? Right. And gave myself some wiggle room and said, if I make it to 11,000, it's going to be okay. If I make it to just paying off 9,000, it's going to be okay. But I knew myself, and I celebrated. I said, okay, at the end of a quarter, I'm going to go do this, or I'm going to buy this, or I'm going to have this, or whatever it was. One time I even got a cake and I lit candles for myself.
That's awesome. But
then
you got to celebrate it because, look, we like to be recognized for our accomplishments, even if it's just us personally. So it's a feel-good moment, and you say, you know what, I can do this again. So and you know, just keep that up, keep them little baby steps, and set them little milestones. So I agree with that. So good job.
Perfect. So let's dive in just a little bit. I mean, so we've talked about feeling it, being realistic, think in terms of percentages, not dollar signs, and then knowing who you are and like how much recognition or how much celebration you need, and setting these key milestones. And then, you know, I don't care if you throw yourself a little party, go for it. But let's dive into like some key things. So what tips do you have for people who have a lot of debt, or it doesn't matter if you have a lot, if you have $1,000, you have $100,000 in debt, who want to work on either paying all of it off or some of it?
Sure. Over the years, you know, it's funny, a lot of advisors out there, and I hear both sides of the story. So with a lot of the groups I'm in, a lot of advisors don't want you to pay off that mortgage because the debt is, you know, that's considered good debt. You're building a credit history with it. You know, it's usually lower interest rates, this, that, and the other. But as the consumer gets closer to retirement, that small debt, that mortgage payment is their biggest debt. Well, sometimes now with car payments as high as they are today, some car payments are up close to what some mortgages are. So, but you look at that, I'd rather a consumer go into retirement. And again, it's about the feeling. If Michelle, the day you retire, let me ask you this, because this is how I ask it to the consumer. How would you feel knowing the day that you went into retirement that you had your Social Security check coming in, you had your husband's Social Security check coming in, and you had your savings and investments to live off of, and you had zero to pay your mortgage?
I can only imagine it would be a game changer, because that cost of living, that payment, whether you're paying, even if you rent or more, that payment every month is a lot.
It's a lot of money. It truly is. And usually that's the reaction I get. So when consumers ask me, Brian, does it make sense to pay off my mortgage? Let me ask you this question. And when I say that, they're like, yeah, I want it gone.
Yeah.
So, and it's all right. And then also, you also have to compare it with, I just had a client ask me this in Florida, actually. And they said, okay, we got a new home, and do we just pay it off because we sold our house in another state for a much higher valuation because of the rising prices? Do we just pay off? We got the cash. Do we just pay off the new one so we don't have to have no payment? I said, yes, please. Because the interest rate that they were paying on that mortgage, the new mortgage, there was no guarantee that me as an advisor or any other advisor could guarantee that person what they were paying on that mortgage on an annual basis. So I said, pay it off. And they did. So it's about that feeling. How does it make you feel?
Well, and also doing the math. If you couldn't guarantee a return that matched, I mean, it then just makes sense.
Just makes
sense.
Do
the math. So what about in terms of like credit card debt? For people who are, there's different methods. There's the Avalanche, there's the Snowball.
Right.
Have you seen anything work over the other, or is it just really about people picking something that works for them and going for it?
That's what it is. It truly is. Okay, so let's take that for example, because there's a lot of methods out there. The Snowball, the Avalanche, whatever it is. Look, to me, what suits you as an individual? Right. Can you stick to this plan? Mm-hmm. And like you said, with the baby steps, can you put X amount of dollars extra each month toward this plan? And once you pay off one, and whether it's the smallest one, and then you take that payment and add it to the next one, or if you go with the highest interest rate first, I always suggest the highest interest rate first to throw more on that one. But if we have a consumer that I'm sitting with that likes the baby steps, no.
Right.
If they got 5 credit cards, let's take that smallest one and pay it off. Now they only got 4. I just got rid of 20% of their credit cards, not the credit card amounts, but
Right.
credit cards. It's still a feeling
Yeah.
that they accomplished something. Now they attach it to the next smallest one. And then all of a sudden they're down to 1 credit card and every dollar from the 5 is now going onto 1. So again, personal preference, suggest both and see which one fits their lifestyle best.
Okay, great. We did do a video on paying off debt first or saving for retirement. I highly suggest we'll put the video above here, and then also we'll put a link in the description below. Yes. But go check that one out because Brian does a deep dive on which comes first and how to actually balance it. So we won't get too deep into that now.
That's a good one.
And also, that one has some great tips specifically on paying off debt. We went really into detail on how to make it go faster without necessarily spending more. All right, so let's talk about savings. So we've got retirement. What tips do you have? I mean, some of these contribution limits are doable. For example, the IRA traditional Roth for 2021, 2022 is $6,000. If you're 50 and over, it's $7,000 because you get that extra $1,000 catch-up contribution. But some of the 401ks
start there.
And they're like simple IRAs, and some of the other investment vehicles, you're looking at tens of thousands of dollars you could possibly save. So I'm going to turn it over to you. What advice do you have for people?
This is a good one because this is my process.
Mm-hmm.
I look at getting all the free money you can first.
Right.
Okay. If your company is matching anything, we want you to maximize that first.
For a 401k.
401k, whether it's 401k, 403b, whatever it may be. If you have a company retirement sponsored program and they're matching dollar for dollar for the first 3% or 2% or whatever it is, get it, because it doesn't make sense to go somewhere else. It was funny. I remember a client specifically asking me this. So, well, Brian, the stock market's doing great right now. Why don't I give you money to invest for me? And I said, great. My suggestion would be a Roth IRA, this, that, and the other. And I said, but let me check your 401k first. Mm-hmm. They weren't contributing to their 401k. And I said, okay, so let me look at your plan. I looked at the plan. The company was matching $2.25 for every dollar that they put in for the first 3%.
Whoa.
That is a 225, just simple math, 225% return on your money.
Right.
Sorry, can't beat it. I don't care if the company was only matching dollar for dollar for the first 3%. Yet it's still 100% return on your money.
And free money.
Guarantee that. It's that simple.
Right.
So again, you have to look at what you have that's available. Start with your matching your 401k first. Second, my second favorite product is the Roth IRA. Go there next because of the tax-free status when you retire with that program. So again, there's where my 2 big things are. Make sure you get the match, get the free money. Next is max out that Roth IRA each year. If you can do them 2 things, you will have a healthy retirement. It's that simple.
We shot a video on compounded interest or compounding interest, however you want to call it, and your investments.
Yes.
We're also going to put that above and in the link below because it's really important. There's a calculator in there, and what my suggestion is, this worked really well for me when I was creating my financial plan. The finally the year that it worked because I worked the plan. I mean, but also I made key decisions when life got harder, when things went wrong. And I said, I'm not going to max out my retirement. I went and played with those numbers in the compounding interest calculator. And I really saw just me putting my 5% of my income in my retirement account in that moment, what would happen in 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Yep.
It's, it helps you make better decisions when life happens.
it's easier to see it on paper
Yeah.
or on a calculator like that than it is to visualize it.
For sure.
Because we always visualize the best, you know,
Right.
the 50-foot yacht, the 6,000 square foot home, this and the other. That's the visions that people think of. But in all honesty, if you see the numbers on paper, you're like, oh, I can do that. I can put back $50 a month, $100 a month to build the plan that I need to build. So,
and you can do it while you're paying off debt at the same time. That's the beauty of it. And you can make investments and you can make major purchases. It's really about creating a plan. So speaking of, let's actually dive into, well, I guess the second part of that, savings. First we talked about retirement. Let's talk a little bit about savings. You've got college savings. Some people have that for their, if they have a 529 plan for their child, or they're stashing cash, or they're saving for themselves.
Right.
There's your rainy day fund, and then saving for vacations. That has to be in the plan. And I think the vacation thing is important. I didn't do it for years, and I know people who don't. They just decide, oh, we're going on vacation, and there's no money allocated for it. And then that comes out of your regular income. And then guess what? Now you're behind on all your other stuff.
On that note, Michelle, I remember when I was a factory worker way back in the day. When I first got married, I got married at 19. And I was a factory worker. And it's kind of funny. How did I get here? That's a whole another story. But anyways, I remember we'd always schedule our vacation. We knew when it was coming up. You got your 1 week or two. And I think it was 1 week all I had at that time. And it was 1 week, and you scheduled that week. Now, there's your time frame. You've got 6 months, 9 months, whatever it is to save until you get there, because you knew how much you would spend. You knew how much the place would cost you because you reserve it ahead of time. You knew what the gas would be. We drove because it was cheaper to drive than it was to fly, 4 of us at a time, and this, that, and the other. But you made the plan and you put back, I don't care if it's $10 here, $20 here. You would take some of your tax refund. And it's funny, you save through that tax refund, and it's like, okay, I'll pull out X amount of dollars and put it towards the vacation. And, I don't do that today because we're different today. Things are different. I don't get a set vacation like I used to, but when I did, that week was mine. It was the feeling of that week is I want to have the best time ever with my family. So you would save for it so you had that money when the time came. So
right. Well, and even if we don't all get the, vacation time isn't the same for a lot of us. If we have side hustles or we are self-employed or what have you, still the feeling of it goes back to that, and just plan for it. Work the plan, create the plan, work the plan. So you mentioned something about tax refunds. That was one tip I had. If you're going to get a tax refund, and this requires you to sit down and, figure it out and not wait till the last minute, or if there's windfalls of cash coming in, if for example, this happened to me years ago, my father passed away, and I knew that it was going to be a few months, and then this money would be coming to me, and it was coming to me in a different year. So I put that into my plan. I didn't know if it was going to come in January 1st or in January 31st. It didn't matter, but I planned for it.
Sure.
And if you don't plan with what you're going to do with your money, you will spend it somewhere.
It's kind of like the lottery effect, Michelle. Someone wins the lottery today. You hear the stories all the time that someone won the lottery and a year later they're broke again. So I had a family member that hit a small lottery. I mean, it was still $100,000, and it went and bought a house with that, paid cash for it back in the day, and it was they had a nice house, and there was him and his sister and his mother and their children, and so there was they all stayed in this house, but 3 of them were 3 incomes coming in the house, but no one kept up on the taxes, the maintenance on the house, this, that, and the other. 2 years later, they lost the house.
Yeah.
Because they just didn't plan for it. And this, Michelle, this goes back to making the plan, following the plan. But I'm going to have to go back and say that a lot of this, the biggest problem with anything that we're talking about here today is this planning should have started, this should be a high school course.
Well, for sure.
You can't graduate till you can write a check. You can understand that what a debit card does, what a credit card is, this, that, and the other. I remember teaching, I got invited into a home economics class and to speak to students. 2 kids showed up to listen to my speech. Well, it's funny, at the time, my wife was running the study hall at the school. And she says, well, heck, come on over here. We have 120 students. So principal says, yeah, come on. And I said, look, if you don't want to listen, that's fine. But today I'm going to teach you something. I got so many phone calls from parents of these kids, like, thank you for teaching them. The bank comes in and taught them how to open a checking account and how to get their first credit card. I taught them how the negatives of that first credit card and how the bank wants them to do this.
Right. No, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's about the plan. You've got to understand this stuff, and we hope our videos help you do that. So
for sure. Do you have any tips before we wrap this video up on investments, like strategies for investing? I have investing. Before it was just debt, then it was savings and debt, then it was retirement savings and debt, and then as my years went on, and now it's like, okay, really, more savings and a lot of investment. The game's changed for me.
Besides your normal consistently investing, dollar cost average in, which is the best way to do it. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
But always look for opportunities. Okay. The market reacts and overreacts more to the overreact side, to the upside and to the downside. So it could be a breaking news story that comes out, whatever it may be, and the market will react to it or overreact to it. Usually the best buying opportunities that we've seen in my 23 years is when the market is overreacting on a news story that may or may not be as bad as it was perceived. And they do it on both sides. They do it on the upside and on the downside. So look for them type of opportunities. Look for tax law changes, because that could create a shift in the mental investing of hedge fund managers, of institutions, whatever it may be. Look for stuff like that are game changers. But also, I like to go and see what the kids are doing today. What is the next generation doing? And you're starting to see a lot of stuff. I get so many phone calls about crypto. But gaming, what I'm also seeing is gaming.
Yeah, gaming.
And how big gaming is. You've seen this year that Facebook changed their name from Facebook to Metaverse.
Yeah, the Meta. Yeah, well, it's Meta. It's not Metaverse.
Meta now.
Yeah.
So look for them type of opportunities. Keep your ears open. Always look for the next opportunity.
Okay, great. And what advice do you have about, I think you made a really good point. Be careful with the emotional. I'm amazed at the media sometimes, because it's like, what? And it's like, guys, it's just a 6% correction. What's going on here? but
the Dow's down 1,000 points today. Well, it is. But this goes back to what you said earlier, Michelle. You said percentages over dollar signs. Okay, the Dow may be down 1,000 points, but what is that? 0.3%.
Right. What's it up? Yeah, exactly.
It's like, come on. But it's the headline. News is always looking for the headline, and that could be the bigger the number,
Exactly. So, well, on that note, so what do you recommend for people who are building? The whole point of this was, how to create a plan financial plan for yourself that works. For those people who are investing, you mentioned dollar cost averaging in. Do you just suggest that they earmark like 5%, 10%, whatever it is, or 2%, I don't know, of their income to investing each month and whatever that is? And that's just, do you understand what I'm saying? In that way, you're not saying, I'm going to take all this money and I'm going to go do this, because then you're not following a news cycle.
Yeah, honestly, if you're going to look, they always tell you 10%, always put in 10%. Okay, well, if you make 50,000 a year, that's $5,000. That's $400, a little over $400 a month, right?
Right.
For the average family, that's not doable.
Right. Well, especially
Okay.
with inflation now.
Well, yeah, everything's went up. So here's what I suggest. Start with an amount that's not too big. Remember the baby steps. So if you can do 2% a month,
Right.
$50 a month, $100 a month, what fits into your budget and that won't make you change your lifestyle that
Okay.
you're used to. And then when you have extra, add the extra. So like the rainy day fund, have an emergency savings put back. One big thing that I've always asked my consumers is, say it's Monday morning. You needed access to cash that you
Right.
could get immediately on Monday morning, the minute the bank opens. What is that dollar amount?
What's that amount to you, or what is,
And
yeah.
it could be 5,000, it could be 2,000, it could be 25,000 that they felt comfortable having sitting there, knowing that it's there. Build that emergency fund first, because what's going to happen is, we talked about looking for opportunities in the market. You're going to see days where the market overreacts to the downside. The
Right.
minute that happens, you've got this rainy day fund. It's like, ring, ring, Brian, remember that rainy day fund? I need to put some of that money to work. Is this a good day to do that?
Sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. If you're thinking 5 to 10 years out in the future.
Sure.
So,
Okay. This has been really awesome. I think the biggest, if you can take anything away from this video, feel it.
kill it.
Create a plan that's realistic and work the plan. I actually have a note that's in my bathroom. It's in a sticky, it fell off. I gotta put that back up there. It used to say, work the dang plan, Michelle. That's all it said. And I called my mom and I'd be like, remember I was going to sell this and I was going to do this and what? She's like, are you working the plan? And I'm like, oh. And I just hang up the phone.
Right.
There's a time and a place to break the plan, but not to go to Italy, and not to turn around and, invest in this, that, and the other that may or may not work.
Sure. And think about this too, Michelle. When we talk about not just the investment world, when you're making your plan, that plan could be major purchases.
For sure.
Homes, cars, whatever. Now look look where we're at right now in today's society. Today's society, there's a shortage of vehicles because of the chips, right? There's a supply shortage. So used car prices are sometimes more than new car prices because there aren't new cars.
Oh.
Very few out there. So you got to be careful on this, because what's going to happen is in the future, as the chips start coming back into it and they start making thousands and millions of new chips, them new vehicles are going to be, they're sitting there, they're going to be coming onto the market. The minute that them start coming onto the market, the value of the used car is going to collapse.
Right.
Be very careful on this, because right now they're saying, like in my area, 30 to 34% higher premiums for a used vehicle right now.
Wow.
The actual value is. So that will change, people. So you have to look for bargains. Think against the market, whatever the market is, whether it's investments, whether it's homes. Look, in my area, 24% increase in home prices because there's a shortage of homes for everybody moving into this area.
Right.
And so be careful. Why overpay and get stuck with something for a longer period? Because it goes back to feeling. You aren't going to feel good about that decision a year from now.
No.
So don't rush in, step back, wait for the pullback, and make the move at that time.
Awesome. Great advice. I had no idea about used cars like that. Wow. Oh boy. All right. Well, on that note, create the plan, work the plan. Please feel free to leave comments below if you've had anything work for you, if you have questions, and also hit that like button so we know that you're finding this video content valuable. And thank you so much, Brian, for sharing And thanks to everybody for watching. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.